business guy.
Yeah, right.
Well, aside from being my brother, Pride Smith, man, is an incredibly talented artist. He's a business owner. He's a father and a husband, and been married a long time, like doing better than me in that arena. So I look up to him for certain things. But we're gonna dive into his story a little bit, because while I think I know him, there's so much about you, Pride, that I don't know. And so we're gonna go into your journey and yeah, I want to hear it from your point of view. I have my perceptions, but welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Glad to be here.
You're welcome.
I want to point out that he has an impeccable taste in hats.
I thought you were going to say beards.
Thank you. It's yours is looking good there too, Ryan.
Yeah.
I don't have a hat, so I will wear a coffee cup.
We'll take the
cup. So let's dive in, man. Let's explore your history, your story. And we're going to post comments. I mean, it's going to throw us off track. If we get off track, it's awesome. It's the way we do it. And so, do you want to kind of go into what childhood was like for you? What your experience of it was?
Sure. Yeah. We'll
dive right nope.
Nope.
Next.
What if every answer
question we can explore, but
every answer is like, you already know that, Nick. Well, that's not the point of the show. Like, keep going deeper.
Yeah. So childhood was we grew up. The first part of our childhood was out in the middle of nowhere with us kind of raising ourselves. Mom was off doing work, trying to keep a family going. Dad died when I was 6 months old. So he wasn't around, and there was 11 kids. And I think, I believe at that time there was 8 of us still at home. So Mom was trying to work and provide, and we were all kind of raising ourselves and roaming the countryside. So we lived in Colorado for the first little bit of our lives, and that portion, honestly, I have so many good memories as a kid. Just being able to explore, being able to be free to kind of do what we wanted. A little wild, a little rambunctious. I just remember spending a lot of time up in the mountains, out with the animals, out with nature. It was.
We were raised by wolves.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah. And coyotes.
It's kind of like that. But yeah, I mean, it was siblings raising siblings. Honestly, that was the way we were raised growing up. It was our older sisters who kind of took charge and raised us while Mom was working. And then just really this kind of wild, free childhood until we moved to St. George, Utah. And it was a little more normal, depending on your version of normal when we moved to St. George. But just spent a lot of time being creative. I mean, we came up with our own fun. We made our own creations. We did everything as siblings. We fought together. We played together. We got in trouble together. That's just kind of what we did.
What dirt do you have on Nick Smith?
Oh, Nick. Nick was pretty brutal to me as a kid.
He holds up a stack of
but in all honesty, I was pretty brutal back.
Yeah. I remember that. Matt, I also remember the freedom that we had. Like one of the memories that came up for me was the Matchbox cars, and we'd go out by the creek bed, the dry creek bed, and we would build cities out of these, out of the dirt, and drive these cars around like we were in those cars. Like, so the creativity was definitely there. It was always, we had this freedom to just be kids, to go explore. Every stick was a gun. So we'd have wars. We had horses that we'd take care of. I remember Pride and I, one time we went to look at a dead horse. Somebody had shot our horse that we were taking care of. So we went to see it, and I was climbing over the fence, and my foot got caught on the barbed wire, and I fell on a ream of barbed wire and cut my knee wide open. And I had this big tube socks on, and it just filled with blood. My whole sock did. And I think Pride was like, "You want to go back to the house?" I'm like, "No, let's go see the horse." Here I am bleeding to death. And I think we went and saw the horse anyway, because we were so curious, and we were just wild children, feral children in a way, right?
Feral Pride Smith and feral Nick Smith.
We were pretty rough. I remember one time we were playing hide and seek / tag. We were running around, and we were hiding in this horse trailer, and our sister Brooke was in there, and Nick went to run in, and Brooke grabbed that door and just swung it as hard as she could and smacked Nick right in the face with the heavy door of that trailer.
Yeah, the back of the head. Yeah.
That explains a lot.
I do have some brain damage from that, I think. Because I remember her saying, we couldn't find her, and she's like, "Here I am," and she slams the door open. And it hits me right in the head. Okay. And we used to play tag on 4-wheelers. Our older brothers would be the ones that were on the it was on a 3-wheeler.
Yeah, on a 3-wheeler.
Be tagged, they would run you over. Like, so yeah, you talk.
Yeah, I mean, it had those big squishy balloon tires on it, and you would run, and you knew when you were hit. Like, you knew when you were tagged.
You want to be a successful author or an artist, all you do is have to get hit with a door or get run over by a 3-wheeler.
Yeah.
Then you're on your way.
It's funny because it brings up memories and stuff. But so let me ask you this: like, how did that impact your childhood? Like, how did that impact how you thought about yourself?
Lots of trauma.
Yeah, that trauma.
It impacted me with a face full of dirt every now and then, and
that was an impact. Different impact.
Yeah, it was really good though. I mean, you see a lot of people that look back, and there was times in my life where I look back and I felt cheated at many times, not having dad around. and also not having mom around. There was times where I felt like I was kind of ripped off. But as I got older and look back at the experiences and the good times, I mean, there was so many good times as a kid, so many fun explorations, so many fun opportunities of just the creativity. Again, I had mentioned that before, but one thing with the time that I did have with mom growing up, she used to do this sketching game with us all the time. And she'd draw this scribble on a piece of paper. And then we would look at that scribble and we would create something from the scribble. So we would continue what she started. And so early on, all of us learned to be super creative. We learned to explore. We learned to we'd lay down in the grass for hours and look up at the clouds and see what we could see in the clouds. Or we'd look for faces in everything. So if we were out looking at textures in a rock or on a wall, I mean, anywhere, I'll lay in my bed and I'll look up at the ceiling, at the texture on the ceiling, and I'll pick out faces. Yeah, I mean, you see everything up in there.
You see Jesus in toast.
Yeah.
It's there, man. It's there. But it's so much creativity.
She really did like that. So that's called Peridolia. That's what they call it in scientific terms, is Peridolia. It's looking for patterns and things where there aren't necessarily patterns, but she really did. She taught us to do that. I love that. I can see this laying the foundation for your life, So like, did you have, so when you moved to St. George, and I was there, like I say that, like I was with you.
He's like pretending not to know.
It was Christmas Day, 1985. We loaded a moving van on Christmas Day and headed to St. George. And that was intentional. I think mom was trying to make a point with the banks because they were foreclosing on the home and we had to move. And so I think she was putting it back in their face of, look what you did to this family, which in a way we learned some of this behavior of that energy, right? Like, well, I'll show you, right? So
throw it back. Yeah. Self-destructive behavior.
So we moved from St. George, or from Colorado to St. George, and it's just a total shift in energy. It's like we go from being these feral children to, hey, you got to fit into society. It's like taking Tarzan and putting him into a community, right? In a way. I mean, that's my version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that your experience as well?
Oh yeah. We were
okay.
we were a rough bunch of kids when we moved into town, and I remember it was third grade is what I was in at the time, and I was a skinny, scrawny little kid, and I remember we got to school, and we were kind of bullied. You're the new kid in the school, and you got these kids who were kind of tough and mean, just kind of testing the waters, as boys love to do. And I remember there was a couple of kids in my class that were just picking on me pretty good. And Brooke was known pretty fast as being the toughest girl.
That's
in
our
the
sister.
school. Yeah.
Brooke.
And she let those boys have it. I mean, they knew really quick that they didn't mess with me because they didn't want to get the tail end of Brooke. And so I wasn't very much defensive of myself at the time. I was kind of this kickback, avoid confrontation kind of a kid. And Brooke was not. She was in your face. So that was one of the things the boys at school learned really quick not to mess with me because they had to deal with my sister. So just things like that. I mean, it was kind of a benefit. Even though we were rough around the edges moving in, we didn't have too many problems with bullies, I don't feel, because we had tough sisters.
Yeah. Pretty protective ones. Did that kind of lay the foundation for what you do today? I mean, as you look back on your history, did you know you would be doing what you're doing now, or did this just kind of evolve?
It evolved a lot. My original intentions all the way up until I graduated high school is I had planned on going into the movie industry.
Yeah.
And I had planned on going into animatronics and movie special effects.
I'm glad you clarified. I thought you were going to say the porn industry. I was like,
wow. Well,
wrong industry.
We each have our place in the industry. But yeah, no, I'm more the artistic side. Some people call that artistic today too. So take your pick. But yeah, it was really.
Sorry, viewers. That's where my mind goes.
I was gearing everything towards robotics. I loved robotics. I loved building models and things like that as a kid. But I also love to draw. And I spent a lot of time drawing and doing art and things like that, which is kind of funny because I failed all of my art classes. And I think it's because I hated doing what the teacher wanted. The teachers were all, they wanted you to recreate everyone else's stuff.
Right.
And I hated that. And I didn't want to do that. So I would skip doing all the projects and I'd sit and doodle and do all these other drawings in class. But I think the thing that drove me the most really was you, Nick.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, it's we had this kind of competitive edge always going on, and
I didn't see it as competition. I was always ahead of you.
Yeah, exactly. So Nick would always be doing these drawings, and he was amazing. Like he would do these cool little characters, and I mean, I learned how to draw tons of little characters from just watching what Nick drew. And there was this competitive edge inside of me. And I remember I just wanted to be as good as Nick or better than Nick because, we were competitive. So I remember doing all these drawings. And I remember one day I drew this character that I thought was super cool. It was like a superhero. And I come in and my friends are like, oh, that's pretty rad. And Nick comes in and sits down at the kitchen table and he draws out this winged character kind of taking off what I drew. He's like, let me show you how it's done. And his blew mine out of the water. Yeah, like that. Just like that, right?
This is original artwork now. I digressed.
Ryan, that one's going to be posted on eBay after the show, right? So you can
I have original.
That one out for
I don't
for $1 million.
It did take much to pass Nick up.
Yeah, keep going on that story because I don't remember it. So keep sharing.
So anyway, Nick does this drawing, and I remember he gets done, and my friends look over, and they're all, "Oh yeah, that's cooler than yours, Brian." And I was like, "Dude, seriously?" So I remember doing that, and I went into my room and I drew some more. And everything I would show to Nick, like this will show you kind of this competitiveness as we were kids. He'd look at it and be like, "Dude, that sucks." Like, now try again. That one's crap. And I remember Nick had this one drawing that he did, and I took the drawing and I was like, "You're such a jerk! Like you're such a bully." And I had his drawing in my hand, and I also had a blank piece of paper in my hand. And so I was like, "Hey, Nick," and I held the picture up, and then when I put it down, I had that blank piece, and I just tore it in half. And I didn't actually tear his artwork, but he thought I did, and he was so mad. He was so mad because he thought I had just taken this piece of artwork that he had done and ripped it in half. And I was like, I had this goal in my mind. I was like, I am gonna one day beat Nick.
Now that sounds more like you two. Yeah, when we go to dinner and hang out, that's exactly what you get.
You know what I love though? Like I have your artwork on my wall now. And what I love about this is that you kept pushing on your artwork and I let mine slide. Like but I put it into a different energy. I started writing instead, and so one day I'll probably pick it up. But where you put yourself, as far as I'm looking at this chemical painting that you did for me on steel, there's no paint on it. It's the most amazing image that I've ever seen, the detail and everything. And I'm in awe of your artwork.
The viewers feel bad for
Nick.
Nick was being the jerk, like your art sucks.
Yeah, the truth
is pride to rip it up.
I know. The truth is though, I was a jerk as a kid. Pride and I would battle it out, and now we get along really well. I think. I mean, that's what he tells me. So behind the scenes, I don't know.
We lead each other to believe that.
Yeah.
There's a whole separate group chat that you're not part of, Nick.
Yeah. Hey, you're a really good dude. The guy's an asshole. No, it's so amazing to see that you had this skill that you drove toward, and you went to art school. You pushed yourself every day. I saw like Larry King just passed away. That's his name, right? The interviewer. 87. He did 50,000 interviews, and so no wonder he's so proficient at it. And it's like Pride took off and did all these pieces of art, and he's so proficient at it. He's just an amazingly talented human. Because he just kept practicing and practicing and practicing and fine tuning that skill. And I didn't. And so it faded. It's like you not only blown past me, but you're light years ahead of me when it comes to artwork. And so, I just as an analogy for those that are listening is like when you take something, you practice it over and over again and fine tune it, that you're going to get good at it, whatever it is. And it's going to look different for everyone. Do you have any thoughts that come up around that?
It was one of those things that inside of your oh hey Deanna.
Awesome people on today. I haven't seen on here for a while.
People.
Hi Deanna. Hi Anton Gray.
One of the things, you guys had asked me a question, and when you sent over that set of questions and you had asked had you ever been bullied, and I never really pictured it as bullying growing up. It was one of those things, I jokingly put just my brother Nick, but it was one of those things that like we never really pictured. I feel like mom raised us to a point where she taught us to be pretty resilient, pretty tough towards people, and not to take life too seriously. and in that, it's like, sure, we fought as siblings, as I believe all siblings do, and I could be totally mistaken, but I think all siblings fight pretty well. But it was one of those things where we really drove each other, and kind of in this mean-hearted, loving way, we would kind of patronize each other, but we would drive each other.
In an abusive, hardcore, funny way.
Yeah, in seriously just rough ways. Yeah. If I tell you that you suck, I'm telling you that I love you, and I think you're really awesome.
I mean, in the most loving way possible. You're horrible, right?
But yeah, I mean, really, that experience as a kid, it was kind of this drive, and it was really more for almost I want to get to the point where I do something well enough that my siblings appreciate the work that I'm doing. Because we know when we get to that point that we've busted our tails, and we know that we've reached a point in our skills or whatever it is that we're trying to do, that for us it's really this big push for sibling approval, I think is massive inside there, to the point that it's a positive boost, it's a positive push. And that really it drove my artwork. I remember I did this caricature of Nick, and I wish I had dug it out. I don't even know where it's at, but I sent it to him. I mailed him this caricature, and he sent me a letter back, and he was like, "Yeah, you're there, man. You completely surpassed me in artwork. It just nailed Nick's character, and just the facial features, everything was there." And I remember when he sent that letter back, that I was so incredibly motivated to keep going, to just keep doing artwork, to keep pushing myself. And yeah, I mean, all of that growing up and all those things, the way that that instills how you move forward. I look at Nick and his incredible book of how to drive kids to learn to succeed. And no, it's not full of bullying, bullying and patronizing children. It's full of this hope and love and inspiration. But you really see that in Nick's book, the same way, is as how I learned with my artwork, how much those childhood experiences pushed us to become who we are. And yeah, it's been amazing.
I push too, in a loving way. As I look at your path, somebody on the other side of your path would look back and say, oh, he knew where he was going. He's so driven. He had a clear plan. The path was all laid out for him. It was easy to go from point A to point Z. And what I know about you is that is absolutely not the truth. We've had some really deep conversations recently, in the last few years, of some really dark times, and some struggle. And what people don't get to see on the backside of these stories is the struggle. And they think, oh, it's just a clear path. It's easy. He knew what he was doing from point A to point Z, and there was no issue. But what I want you to clarify for the viewers is, what was that journey like? Was it easy? Did you have a clear path? Did you know where you were going to end up today? Are you where you thought you would end up, or is there more?
Yeah, great questions. The journey, like I said, my original focus and path was I wanted to go into the movie industry. That was ultimately where I originally wanted to go. Yeah. And as I looked at the life and the lifestyle and doing the stuff that was there, I had this feeling early on that wouldn't work for me and my family. That wouldn't work for me to have the home life, the family life, the time with my wife and kids. It just wasn't going to be there, was the feelings that I had early on. And so I kept continuing to pursue the artwork realm of it. And there was an incredible amount of struggles. I mean, the first gig I took on as an artist is I started drawing caricatures at the Stratosphere Tower in Las Vegas.
I remember that. Yeah.
And so I started drawing there, and we've kind of, we were raised with this crazy independence where we just want to do something on our own and we want to succeed on our own. But we didn't really have the tools in the early stages to do that. And so we were really kind of, at least for me personally, I was very self-destructive, self-defeating. I would start something, but then I'd get scared and I'd back out of it. And I remember when we were doing these caricatures at the Stratosphere Tower, I looked at, the money that was coming in from doing it, how much I was making my boss, how little I was making for myself. And I thought, I can do this on my own. I'm going to go start my own thing. And so I quit my job and my wife, 100% supporting me as she has done so many times in our relationship. I went and I started a business doing caricatures, and we got a booth down at the downtown Las Vegas at Fremont Street, and another location at the Fashion Show Mall. And it's not that I didn't have the ability to do it, but I didn't, like, I got there and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to bring the clientele in. I didn't know how to be persistent and persevere with bringing in the customer base. And ultimately, I mean, we ended up in a really bad position financially because I had taken that jump. And it was kind of this pattern of what we were raised with, watching our mom, that I just kept doing this over and over, you know. So I ended up tanking that business, and completely flopping at it. And then we went, and my wife and I worked together, and we did some helicopter tours, and I got this opportunity to go to Japan. And so my wife and I did that, and it was amazing. But again, it was another one of those things where I really wasn't planning ahead in any way. I was just driving and driving and driving because I wanted to do my own business. I wanted to do my own thing, and not in a very productive way. And so it caused a lot of hardship, like an incredible amount of hardship in my relationship. It caused an incredible amount of friction with me and people around me. And I just kept doing it again and again. I did a t-shirt business and I flopped it. And I did a online business and I flopped it. And I went into the music industry and was doing, you know, artwork for album covers and things like that. And I was doing really well. And I had worked in that position for about 4 years.
And so hold that. When you talk about music industry, I'm going to ask you to name drop a little bit, because these aren't small bands that you were working with. Like,
yeah. So, I mean, it's
if
a lot of
the
80s, 90s doing stuff. I still work with Winger. I do a ton of work for Winger still. I did a bunch of work for the guys in Megadeth. I did a bunch of their they had an offshoot band. David Ellefson is the bass guitarist. He had a band, F5. I did all of their album artwork for that. I've worked with it's Fishbone. You guys know Fishbone. Their whole record label. I did a bunch of stuff for the entire record label, not just Fishbone. But anyway, it was big music industry stuff, and a lot of startups, startup music industry. In fact, the predominant amount of bands that we worked with were new and up and coming bands. But it was, I started doing really well in this industry, and I thought, I'm going to go out on my own. And I went and I started taking the clientele on my own. And I ended up with Winger as a client after I went out on my own, and I still, was doing that stuff. But again, I didn't have that persistent perseverance behind me with, as I guess, the business management side. I had no management whatsoever, and I didn't want to listen to what other people had to say. My wife is incredibly smart and talented when it comes to being very organized and very detailed in what she does. And she was constantly offering me advice and things like that, and I didn't take it. I was so just stubborn. I didn't want to hear any advice that anyone else had to give. I didn't want it because I wanted to do it on my own.
In your way, right? You wanted to do it
way.
on your own and in your way.
Yeah, and honestly, in the process, I must have started and flopped probably 10 businesses that really just pushed my family to the limit, and really I hit this point, and you had talked about some of those dark times. I finally hit a point. I went into business with my nephew, and I moved away from my family to work up north in Salt Lake for a while. And for 3.5 years, I was away from my family working up north. And just this deep inner drive to want to succeed. And again, just one business after another up there working with my nephew. dump tons of money into these things and they would crash, and we'd do another one and it would crash. And really I hit this point up there where I was at my wit's end. I mean, I was at the darkest, lowest rock bottom point of my life. And you were at the same time, you know, you were going through a divorce, you were going through struggles with finding your way with your book, with the Giants and all of this stuff. And it's I've never been in a place that low in my life. And to the point that I wanted to be done. I didn't want to be a part of life anymore. I had tried and I had failed so many times that I just felt like there was no way out of it. There was no turning back. There was no way to find a way through. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. There was just bleak darkness. And then that was when I realized a lot about myself of what am I doing? Where is my true joy? Where is my real happiness? What is it that I'm pushing for? And where am I going with all of this? You know, it's been 20 years of trying and failing at business. Where am I going with this? And it's I mean, that's where we ended up, you know. And this was just a year and a half ago, honestly.
I remember driving. It was November, I think, of 2019, and I was going to Denver with Marco to watch the 49 or the Chiefs and the Broncos. And you had a breakthrough moment. And it's like you'd spent all this time building these creations and these ideas and inventions and thoughts. And you had this humbling moment where it's like, there's nothing left. I don't have anything else to give. I don't know what to do. I'm kind of at wit's end. I remember having these conversations. I remember crying with you. And you just, you know, you were living on the property up there with Ryan and his, you know, on his property, taking care of that. And you're just at the end of your rope, and you're just kind of like, I don't know what to do. And you just feel like nothing's going to change. And you have this invention, which I love the invention. It's hilarious, but it's taken off, right? Mm-hmm. It's called the Testicuzzi. And it's literally what it sounds like. It's a jacuzzi for men's stuff. And it took off. And I remember getting this call on the way to Denver, and you're like, it just went viral. And I'm like, no way. And I remember being so excited for you, like this celebration inside of me of, yes, this thing just took off, you know, and it hasn't slowed down since. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that this went on to the doctors. It was featured on Shark Tank on that after shot with, who's the owner of the basketball team? Mark Cuban, right?
Mark Cuban, yeah.
And he was dying laughing at this thing. You guys made that viral video. And here you get into this space of thinking nothing I do matters. And if I can use this as an analogy, like the Testicuzzi, one would look at it and say, like, how the hell did that like be successful as a creation, right? And it doesn't matter what the creation is when you humble yourself in a way that you start to open up to all the possibilities that are around you. That creation could be anything. Mm-hmm. And when you start opening up to the possibilities, you start pursuing pathways that allow that to become a reality, and it starts to expand on its own. And so I ranted a little bit here, but I remember getting that call from you of like, there's no movement. And then all of a sudden, boom, it went viral overnight. You're like, this company took it. This company went off with it, and it's over here. And we have this many sales today, and it was through the roof. Mm-hmm. You remember that?
Yeah. In fact, you know, you bring up a good point there of when we were doing all these businesses that we wanted to do. Yep. Like everything we did, we were like, oh, this is a great idea. We're going to push this. We're going to push this. Yep. And Testicuzzi was a joke. Like we really, it was this novelty item. My nephew calls me up over the summer. He's like, hey, I got this great idea. And I think we could do this, like just for fun. And he tells me we should make a Testicuzzi. And I was like, yeah, I can make that. You know, I was doing 3D printing and modeling and all this stuff, and I was like, I can figure out how to make that. And so I 3D print this thing as a joke. You know, like we're just having fun with it, and it was not the business we were pushing for. Like we had all these other businesses we were doing that we had flopped, and we were not pushing for it. And the we had done the stuff, we had made prototypes, and I was really close to having the prototype working. And my nephew was like, "Hey, let's finish this prototype and let's throw it out." And this was the last August. Um, he's like, "Let's throw this thing online and let's just see what people do. Like, let's not even care about it. Let's just make something, put it online, not care whether it goes somewhere, whether it doesn't go somewhere. Let's just put it online and see what happens." And one of the things he had been trying to teach me, he's super successful at business. And one of the things he had been trying to teach me is he said, you know, you've got to learn to let go. You've got to learn to not be so invested in what you're doing that you are trying to push it forward. He said it doesn't work. You can't push a business forward. You can't push something that you're trying to do forward. You have to just believe that it's going to move, and you've got to just let it move. Like let it grow, let it be its own thing, let it do what it's going to do. But you've got to stop. You know, everything when we go into it is this force. We try and push everything. Yeah, Nicole, exactly. Don't force it. You can't. And you know, we're trying to push this stuff forward, and the whole thought the whole time as we're doing these businesses for me is I've got to make money to support my family. I've got to make money to be able to pay my bills. It's money, 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 like the whole purpose. And really that stops you. You know, Nick had mentioned something the other day in one of his posts about want. And that want is it's not having. You're so focused on not having that you keep growing more and more not having. And he was trying to teach me, you got to get that out of your head. He's like, you can't think about money. And he's all, I know you're looking at me right now thinking, are you kidding me? You're a millionaire. Who are you to tell me to not think and worry about money? You have millions of dollars, you know? And it's one of those things where I couldn't get it out of my head. And when I reached that breaking point where I was just at my lowest point, I mean, all I could think about at that point was, I'm ruining my life and I'm ruining my family. I've got to stop this destructive behavior. I've got to find a way to stop this destructive behavior of just like fear, just living in so much fear. And before I called Nick and told him about the Test Jacuzzi stuff starting to take off, I had this really enlightening moment where I I was just at my wit's end, and I had this thought pop into my mind, which was, I'm here, so this is where I belong. And the thought was, that was the whole thing. It was just, I'm here, so this is where I belong. Stop worrying about the fact that you've made so many mistakes in your life. Look at the fact that this is where you are. It doesn't matter how you got here. It doesn't matter what you did. Focus on the fact that you're here. You belong here for some reason. Move forward, take a step, and just trust that you're where you belong, and you'll be guided moving forward. And so I made that my mantra, you know, moving forward. I am here, so this is where I belong. And literally within a week, you know, we had posted this stuff online, and we're like, whatever, we'll put it on there.
Keep going. I'm going to disappear, but I'll be right back.
Okay. And it ends up getting picked up by Viral Thread. You know, and actually before that, we got a phone call from Kansas, from the radio station K-Rock in Kansas. And they said, hey,
I remember that interview.
Is this real? Like, is this product real? And we're like, yeah, like we made one. And
do you remember that?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you guys a story about this rock. Sorry, I'll diverge back to the Testicuzzi thing. But yeah. I was out working. We were moving enormous amounts of dirt for this project with my nephew. And in the dirt, I found this rock. And it's the rock that Nick's holding in his hand right now, and it's got the X in there. And that was the rock. That was actually the same week that I had that feeling inside of, I am here, so this is where I belong. X marks the spot. This is where I belong. I'm here.
This is now on a pair of shoes as a birthday gift from Mr. Ryan Morris to me.
They're on their way. I make custom-made bands inspired actually by Steve Hardison and Pride Smith, because Pride had given the rock and posted that. And then Steve Hardison had his own shoes made, or somebody made shoes with his logo on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you can make, I wonder how much that is. Yeah. And then it came to me, I was going to do something giants and the smalls for Nick. And then it came to me like hit me like a barn door or a horse trailer door
to the back of the head.
Yeah, like a three-wheeler to the face. And
like a little bit of brain damage.
Yeah. And if I can find these shoes along the way, maybe I'll see if I can post them, but maybe I'll throw it in the comments later. But
yeah,
anyway, pretty cool.
But keep going with that thought.
So anyway, we put this thing online, people start to pick it up, and I was at this rock bottom stage, and Nick was, like he said, he was at that game, and my nephew calls me up. It's a Thursday night, and he says, hey, look at our website, look at our traffic, something's going on. Oh, those are sweet. That's awesome. I love those, man. So he says something's going on. So I go on and look, and we have we've got, I think it was 1,000 hits or 900 hits or something like that, and it was pretty consistent traffic coming through our website. And we're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And it's like, I can't wait to see what it looks like tomorrow. So we go to bed. I wake up in the morning and I open up to look at our analytics for our site, and we have 10,000 views on our website. And I was floored. I was like, what is going on? And Ryan calls me back, my nephew calls me, and he's like, are you looking at the website? I'm like, yeah, I'm on there right now. And it's like 10,000 views. We're both looking at these 10,000 views of our Testicuzzi product. And we're like, this is crazy. Like, how is this blowing up? And we start tracking where all this stuff is coming from. And this website called Viral Thread picked it up. It was over in London. And, we're like, London, how did we end up in London? We're in the US just doing a radio show. And it just exploded. And it was like 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. We just started exploding with people hitting the website, and we had people contacting us and wanting to buy the product. And we didn't even have a product at this point. Like, we had a prototype. We hadn't made a prototype.
You're over there 3D printing like crazy.
Yeah, the radio station is like, hey, can you send us one? And we're like, yeah, I'll 3D print you one and send it over.
8 hours later, yeah.
We start going into this production mode, and I had designed the product in a way that it really wasn't working that well yet, and I was like, what do I do here? But it was moving, and we're like, okay, let's run with this. There's this movement, there's this momentum going on. Let's do something with it. And my nephew, being the savvy businessman that he is, he's like, hey, we got to figure out how to get this out to people. Let's start looking into manufacturing. Let's do a Kickstarter. Let's put everything out that we can. And the Kickstarter was actually running at this time at the very beginning, to try and get some funding, but we weren't getting the draw on the Kickstarter. In fact, we fell short of our goal. We were about, I want to say $500 to $1,000 short of reaching our goal. And we're like, do we just dump our own money into this and finish off the Kickstarter and use what's come in, or is there a different way? And we decided, scrap it. We're not going to do the Kickstarter. Like, we didn't reach our goal. We're not going to push into it. We're like, how else can we do this? And so we decided, let's just put it online. Let's just make our own store and let's pre-sale. And it's one of those things you look at this point and people are probably thinking, oh, wow, it exploded. And from this point, it was like super easy. But it was, again, problem after problem after problem. And one thing that I've learned in this process is the problems don't ever go away. The problems never go away. It's the whole point and purpose of life is, what do I do with those problems? How do I react to those problems? You're always going to have them. And if you know you're always going to have them and you can work through them, then you're going to find your way. But you can't be afraid when those problems pop up. You've just got to look at them and say, I'm here. So this is where I belong.
I look forward to the problems because look, I know what it does to me. I know, like, it can give me pause for a second sometimes. I mean, sometimes there's some big ones that come along, but what it does to me is it helps me grow. And so, like, I love the problems. I love I love when Pride Smith shows up 37 seconds before we go live.
I'm glad there's an invention now. Yeah, there's an invention now for those nut punches.
Yeah. Right.
They're gonna happen, and so what you do with them is what matters most. Is that problem going to define you and shut you down, or are you going to take it and create with it? Because we've had to adapt so many times, Ryan, like the StreamYard, when Zoom shut down, the entire nation shut down. We went to interview Paul Cardall. We had to find a solution. So we found a solution, and here we are today using StreamYard. That's how it works, is like, you got to just adapt. Man, that's life. If somebody's climbing Everest, I was talking to somebody this morning about this in a coaching call, is that when somebody's climbing Everest, there's a level of preparation that you can have. But almost always there's a storm that comes through and blows all your shit away, and you've got nothing left. And you're like, I still got to decide, am I going to climb the mountain or am I going home?
And then,
right?
You have a thong and a pickaxe, and you just got to deal with it.
Yeah. So you make do with what you got.
Yeah, and I'll share one of those. So we get in, we do all these pre-sales, and the pre-sales goes amazing. Yeah. I mean, people are jumping on, they're buying like crazy, and we're thinking, okay, this is awesome. We go through, we find ourselves a manufacturer, we find all this stuff, we get it out there, and we're trying to sell all this stuff so people can get it for Christmas last year. And so we get the manufacturing lined up, we get, the cash is in place, all this stuff, and we're doing our stuff on Shopify, and they contact us and they're like, hey, what are you guys doing? Like, we're getting notices that you guys don't have product. We're like, we have product. We have a manufacturing agreement. We're pre-selling. These people know we're pre-selling. It's not supposed to be here till this end. It's listed very clearly on our website. We are pre-selling these products. And they're like, well, we're not going to release your money until you have product. I'm like, we can't pay for the product without you releasing our money. Like, we've got to have the funds to be able to get the product. And so it's this back and forth and back and forth. And so I start making phone calls and negotiating with Shopify, like, what do I need to do to make this happen? Like, we're not scamming people. We're selling these products, but we got to have these pre-sale funds in order to run the product. And so it was probably a couple months of back and forth with Shopify, getting, contracted agreements from our manufacturer to be able to go in and get the product made, to make sure it's in. So we get all this stuff. We finally get that squared away, get the money, pay the manufacturer. And everything slows down. This was like November last year, which was when coronavirus stuff started outbreaking over in China. Well, manufacturing started shutting down. So all this stuff starts shutting down. We've got people waiting and anticipating these products for Christmas, and we've got nothing to send them. And so now we've got chargebacks and angry customers and all this stuff going on, and we're just thinking, what do we do? And we're just like, just trust that it'll work out. Everything will work out. Just trust that it's going to work out. And so we just kept moving forward, and we continued with sales, and we continued. And honestly, it took, for some of these people to get their product in hand, it was almost 6 months. And they were expecting it within a month and a half. And so we're thinking, there's no way these people are going to stay on board. There's tons of money that they've dropped in. We've taken that money now and we've spent it on manufacturing so that we get the products back and send it to them. And there was all of these challenges. Then we ran into the Chinese New Year. Who knew that China takes an entire month off for the Chinese New Year? And so we had our manufacturers are like, sorry, we missed the previous deadline, but it's Chinese New Year, so you're going to have to wait. So it's like another month of delays. And we're getting just these angry emails, and, it's problem. And our whole thought, my nephew Ryan and I, as we've been working together, the one thing that we've come to is we have this saying, it's the dirt will show up, and I don't know if we'll have time, I'll tell you guys later. But it's this statement that we were doing a construction project and we needed, like, I don't even know how many thousands of tons of dirt, and we could not find it anywhere. And we were at this convention one day, and Ryan was super stressed about how are we going to find enough dirt? We got to build these buildings and we don't have enough dirt. And I looked over him and I said, Ryan, the dirt will show up. Like, just let's just focus on what we're doing. The dirt will show up. And literally, I said that statement, and about 10 minutes later, someone calls me on the phone and says, hey, I heard you guys are looking for dirt. And it was the city of Orem, south of where we were. We were up in American Fork, Utah. The city of Orem said, we're doing a big project. We don't know where to stick all this dirt, and we don't want to haul it all the way over. We'll come drop the dirt off to you if you'll let us have a place to drop it.
It's convenient.
And they start bringing these semis full of dirt to drop off on this thing. And it was one of those things where after that experience, I mean, from that point on, we did not have to worry about dirt for that project. It literally showed up at our doorstep every time. And we were like, okay, moving forward, regardless of what problems we run into, we're just going to trust that the dirt will show up. That whatever it is that we need is going to show up.
I want to hit on that.
And we did that with the Testicuzzi.
Yeah.
What's that?
I want to hit on that because it's every creation. When you're so clear about the creation, Ryan and I had a conversation just briefly before the call about feeling your creation. Well, feeling is a sensory experience. You feel your emotions. You feel a computer. You see things and your brain interprets it. So when you have that clarity of vision, that it's inevitable, that you've already touched it. So there's no going backward of could it exist? It's in your mind. It exists so realistically that it's inevitable. The path appears. You don't have to have all the clarity of how you're going to do it. Mm-hmm. When you have that vision of it already is, kind of like what I did the other day with the movie poster, like this already is. How the path will show up, I don't know. Like you couldn't have predicted that the city would call and bring you dirt. That wouldn't have even been on your radar as a possibility or an option, but you knew the dirt would show. And when you get into that space of creation where you know that what you're creating is so real that it just is, then the pathway appears. And it doesn't matter what it is. That's with the book. That's with the movie that will be out. That's with your creation with the Testicuzzi. It's with your artwork. It's anybody's creation. When you know it, when you feel it to that degree, the path appears. All you have to do is stick the seed in the dirt and trust that it has that potential and it will reach it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really, when you stop grinding against yourself, you're only fighting yourself. You know, when you're doing this stuff, the biggest thing we learned is you're only fighting yourself. The problems that come into your way, the things that come in front of you, the things that become obstructions in front of you, they're not really the problem. The problem is, are you going to trust that it's going to work out? Or are you going to cause yourself so much stress and so much anxiety over something that is out of your control?
Yeah.
It's not yours to control. If you've set it in, you're working on it, you're doing it, you're not going to be let down. You know, you've let these plans in there. God and the universe, you know, for me, it's God. I believe in God very adamantly. For others, it's universal belief, whatever it is. They're not going to let you down. They know what you're doing if you trust them. But if you don't trust them, they're going to let you tear yourself to pieces with your own internal thoughts. And you just have to hit that point that you just realize, look, the dirt's going to show up. You know, we're 6 months behind on our production stuff with Test Jacuzzi, and we just trust it's going to work out. And it did. We have no idea how it worked out. It was this persistent moving forward, but we just kept moving forward. You know, I'd call my business partner Ryan up and I'd be like, hey, what can I do? And he's like, nothing. Just kick back, relax. You know, if we have another product we need to put out or we need to do another prototype, I'll let you know. But let's just let this play out. And it has. I mean, there has been so many terrifying moments, so many scary things that we've looked at, and we've just decided it's not worth stressing about. It's not worth being terrified over. It's not worth stressing over and having anxiety or trying to push real hard. And in fact, I have a funny story. Nick, you were talking about when life kicks you in the balls, basically.
Yeah.
When we were doing the same project that we needed the dirt for, we were doing all this stuff kind of simultaneously as we were doing the Testicuzzi stuff. The city would not pass us on our our final inspections to open up the buildings. They would not pass us. And during this whole process, we had done the Test Jacuzzi thing and gotten this stuff running. Well, we had been battling back and forth with the city, with the inspectors, just head to head, butting heads, and could not get passed on final inspection on these buildings to open them up for these storage facilities. And my nephew, Ryan, we finally got some products in. He takes the Test Jacuzzi, 2 of them actually, because there's 2 inspectors we were working with. He packages them up. He takes them down to the city offices to these guys with a note that says, "So sorry we busted your balls for so many months. Hopefully we can remedy things." Literally 2 days later, clear. Everything's passed, inspection's done, building's open. Like, who knew that the 2 paths were going to converge there? You know, us going in and just saying, "We're sorry, it's been such a headache. Here's a little something to relax." And it opened up another door from something that was completely unanticipated. You know, I mean, it was letting go. It was just stop fighting so hard against what you're doing and just let it be.
So we're right at the hour. I mean, it's already been 58 minutes, which is crazy to me. Because I know we could go for hours on this.
Yeah, we could.
And so in the interest of the show, we'll wrap it up here in just a minute. But what piece of wisdom would you say that you would anchor in from here forward, and that if you could go back in time, you would share that with yourself? Like, this would be the piece of wisdom that would be like, I'm going to use that as a foundational piece, you know, one of the facets. What would that be?
You know, it's for me, it's two items.
Okay.
It's the I'm here, so this is where I belong. And it's the dirt will show up. Those are my 2 main things that I learned in this process. Is I spent so many terrifying days just being afraid, unnecessarily. And I just needed to trust that, you know, God's looking out for you. The universe is looking out for you. They know what you want. They know where you're going. They're going to help you. Just know that where you are is where you belong. Even if you feel like you've gone the worst direction you can possibly imagine, there's something for you to learn from that. There's something that you need to learn through that experience, and just trust that the dirt will show up.
That's amazing. I love that. You know, I look at from our feral beginnings to the nugget of wisdom that you just dropped, and I didn't mean to say nuggets, yes. But
pun is intended.
But it is, pun is intended. It's just amazing to see the path, and for those that are watching, is just you are where you're supposed to be. And when you can accept that and stop resisting it, it opens you up to create even more. It's when you resist where you're at that you feel stuck. It's like, I don't want to be here, and I can't have this, and it can't be what it is, and I need to control the outcome. When you can get into that space of, I'm exactly where I need to be, and it's okay for me to be here wherever it is, and the dirt will show up. Like, if I can just let go of the control of my future and trust that my creation will be as I act, and that the things that I need for that creation to become a reality will show up as I need them, then it just opens up this huge world of possibility. I mean, Ryan, remember we were working on P8 training, on sales training around that book that I wrote. And we went to a networking meeting for that book, and Richard Paul Evans was there.
Yeah, we went for something different.
We were creating that business, and then here shows up Richard Paul Evans with an author event, and it changed our whole direction. But we needed to be in that meeting. By taking the steps we were taking, we didn't know we were there for Richard Paul Evans. We were there for another sales training. But opening that up opened the door for the giants and the smalls to be even what it is today. Like that chance meeting that we didn't even know he was going to be there, that chance meeting opened the door for everything you see today. We're going on a radio show today in about an hour that's international.
Wake Up with Giants Radio.
Yeah, it didn't even exist in our mind when we began this. The idea of having a radio show, a podcast, you know, a TV show on Facebook, thousands of giants from around the world following this message. It wasn't even on the radar. So don't worry about the how-to, worry about the creation. Like, the analogy that I used this morning in the coaching was that a mustard seed, you don't tell it what it's going to be. You plant it, trust that it'll become a mustard seed, right? But if you're sitting there looking at it like, how in the hell is that little seed going to go from that to a tree? And you're trying to plan out its path. You're going to spend your whole life planning out its path. If you just plant the seed and then let it flow, it will become a mustard tree. Like, we're not designed to know the path fully. There's infinite ways to climb the mountain. There's infinite ways for that dirt to show up. Your job is to plant the seed, know that your creation is inevitable, and then follow every intuition that comes to you in between, because you never know which path is going to get you there.
Yeah. And don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Just take the step. Don't be afraid.
I got another question for you, Pride Smith. I know we're running a little long, but okay. So now that you've arrived and you're there, you're here, you're here now, you've arrived. Is this the end for Pride Smith? What,
It never
the
ends.
top of the mountain?
It never ends.
Where are you going from here? What are you doing?
Our next step forward is really, I've pushed so much on these business things. It's really just the family focus. Our big thing is we're looking to move out and be ranchers like my wife and kids have wanted to be, and go be out on some open land. And that's our next push in life. Our next goal is just, keep growing that and let life take care of itself. And just move forward with the next goal, the next big thing to learn from and to understand and to work at. Just go where you're inspired to go. I think that's the biggest thing. Is life will direct you in ways that you never knew possible. A lot of people that I know were really afraid during this last year of coronavirus stuff. And honestly, it was one of the most peaceful, beautiful years of my life with my family and the time that we've had together. And it opened up new doorways of where we want to be as a family. And so it's really just trust and follow. When you get those feelings inside, listen to them. Don't fight them. When you fight them, you end up in dark, miserable places. When you trust them, you find beautiful, beautiful things.
It's amazing. I think that's how we end it. So I want to thank you. Well, it's a continuation always. It's a journey, right? You get to one pinnacle, you go to the next. But for those that are watching, really anchor in this message of, just trusting those inspirations as they come up. Trust that the dirt will come. Trust that you're in the right spot. You're exactly where you need to be. And from there you can grow. Capri keeps trying to come on here.
Hi,
she
Capri.
wants to be on.
She wants to see Uncle Pride.
You see all the people on there? Yeah.
How are you?
Good.
You say hi, Giants.
Hi, Giant.
There's lots of them watching today. So
Giants everywhere.
Yeah. So Giants, as you go out there into the world, just trust that it will work out. Just hold in your mind the feeling of that creation, and the rest will handle itself. And so keep doing giant things. Keep showing up every day. They're saying hi to you. Isn't that cool? So we appreciate you. We love you. We thank you. We see you. Keep doing giant things. Make it a giant day, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, everybody.